Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
So Elon Musk is going after Trump again on Twitter. Although I think maybe the headlines are overstating this a little bit, saying he released a flurry of tweets on X related to Trump Epstein, which is kind of true, but I had to dig a little bit on his account in order to find these tweets, which was an unfortunate thing to have to do. I really got like a nice dose of what Elon Musk's Twitter feed is like. So anyway, essentially what this was is him mentioning a couple times that, there are still unanswered questions here, or that the files should be released. So he's still kind of on this Epstein files thing, but he's not directly accusing Trump of anything anymore. He seems to have backed off of that. And he's a little cowardly in the way he uses his own platform as well, because he's not as much like Trump, where he would make these like very broad statements constantly on Twitter. Elon will do that sometimes, but for the most part, he's kind of just trying to like spur engagement. So he will either like half-assed reply to certain people's comments and get them talking. Most of the time he's like responding to something that he wants people to talk about more. And Epstein would be a good example of that, by just posting like an emoji in response to something that somebody says about Trump and Epstein. Elon knows that he can kind of stir the pot of conversation and keep it going without saying very much himself. So that is I would say a large portion of what his Twitter use has been ever since he became the main character of Twitter all the time, every day. So these tweets are essentially him kind of, referencing and joking about the unanswered questions in relation to Epstein. One of them, bro, if it was such a scam, why the phase 1 binders? To which he responded, indeed. That's referring to when Pam Bondi and all of them initially came into office. The first thing, or one of the first things they did, was release these binders of like Epstein information. See, look, this is phase 1. We're going to release all the rest of this stuff. And then they never followed up on that. So a huge stunt. Really just them capitalizing off of the fact that they know that people in the base want to see this stuff about Epstein. And then at some point, the administration decided they were going to reverse course and that no more stuff about Epstein was going to be released. And this is aside from the fact that they didn't release anything that hadn't been seen before already. They were just marketing it like it was going to be some big reveal, and then turns out to be a total dud. Elon says, wow, I can't believe Epstein killed himself before realizing it was all a hoax. In reference to the idea that I've heard a couple people talking about this now, that Trump is saying that it's all a hoax. The Epstein thing is a hoax, which leads to the question of, is he trying to say that everything that ever was related to Epstein was a hoax? The whole idea that Epstein was doing this sex trafficking and all that, all of it is a hoax? Or just the relation to Trump Epstein is a hoax? That is an interesting distinction. It's the kind of thing that doesn't tend to matter with Trump, but in this case it might matter, because if Trump's trying to make the case to his own base that the entire Epstein scandal was all a fully fabricated hoax, now we're talking about a tough sell. That might be a bridge that Trump can't even sell to his own base. And they've bought a lot of bridges from the guy. They always seem to need more bridges. But the most interesting tweet that he sent was this one, where he references, this is essentially Trump's style of disinformation and of deflecting anytime he's accused of anything. Admit nothing, deny everything, make counterclaims. And he says, but it won't work this time. It's so interesting for him to point this out, because this is what Trump has been doing consistently on every single issue for the last 12 years straight. And Elon Musk, recently was closely allied with Trump. So obviously he knows that this is the type of disinformation tactic that Trump uses to control the news cycle, to deflect any criticism of him, etc. But he's only willing to point it out about this particular issue. But I mean, he's referencing it like this is an understood tactic of Trump's, and it is, and I will say that it's rather well articulated here. But I mean, this is the guy that he paid millions of dollars to help get elected. So it's just interesting for him to point that out so flippantly. The other thing that he was doing is he was asking Grok about this. So they have this updated version of Grok now, I guess. This is shortly after Grok went haywire recently and started calling itself Mecha Hitler and referencing a bunch of like Nazi memes and stuff, and really embodying like a modern Twitter 4chan neo-Nazi, like the cadence and everything. And clearly some update to the program, and this was before this new update. Clearly something was done on the back end, either somebody directly instructing it to behave that way, or what's more likely is that something that was included in the training, whatever, like a certain batch of training information it was given, probably included like a lot more of the Nazi type tweets than usual, because again, Elon has ushered that sort of thing in on Twitter, so there's an increasing amount of it, and there's probably certain users that are directly trying to game Grok and trying to feed it training information however they can, that is going to turn it into like a more of a Nazi propaganda machine. And so this caused a big controversy, but you know, Elon is plowing ahead with this Grok thing. Clearly it is an unreliable source of information. But anyway, in this front-facing version of Grok, which was also the version that went Hitler mode on everybody, Elon Musk was kind of prompting it to answer questions about Epstein, where it's talking about the FAA database, where he asks if there are any digitized files or electronic records. Grok says, yes, there are, and DOJ includes these files and this and such and such. He says, would that mean the government knows the names and ages of all those who traveled on the planes? Grok says, yes, the DOJ and FAA hold extensive passenger manifests. So look, here's the thing. This, and Elon knows this, so I think what he's trying to do is sell Grok here. But what this is doing is it is kind of just compiling a likely answer to these questions. These things are not designed to cross-reference information. And so, especially when it comes to government records, what government databases are capable of holding what they're likely to have at any given point, Grok is not any more capable of discerning that than any other person who pays attention to these sort of things. And while it might be able to compile certain information, an important thing to note here is that there's no sources listed here. And the only way that I have found any of these AIs to be usable in this sense when it comes to finding information is to tell them to give you links to sources. And in this one, it shows some sources: DOJ memo, AP, Miami Herald. But it's not really saying anything here that, again, that isn't already public information. So it's different from saying, based on the articles that you have in your data set, you know, what is the information that we know about this, versus asking it to extrapolate what information the government is capable of discerning or likely has on file. Grok just does not have access to that information. Now, the only reason that it could have access to more information than we think is because Elon Musk got access to a lot of that behind the scenes government data. So I don't know how much they were able to incorporate that with Grok. I know that Elon Musk and the government recently signed a contract, like some $500 million contract or something, with the Defense Department. So, you know, and this is days after it had this like Hitler meltdown. So this is unstable technology. Elon Musk, as always, is doing what he's best at, which is overselling and under-delivering. So his games on Twitter are not to be taken too seriously, I don't think, except for the fact that I do think that he, with this Epstein stuff, is trying to push people away from Trump and towards whatever he views as what he wants to like introduce for this new party. The idea that this party of his is going to become a real viable party is probably a non-starter, because it's going to take so much work in order to get a third party on the ballot in all the states that you would need to get in order to actually get voted into power. Now, his plan could be to be more of a spoiler or it's some kind of promotional thing, but I don't think that we should underestimate Elon because I do think he tends to follow through with these things, whether it is being dragged kicking and screaming or not. Like when he bought Twitter, and it was because the courts kind of forced him to. He initially said he was going to, and then he backed out, but he was forced to buy it. And then he was like, oh, I'm the Twitter guy now. And then, so it was easy to laugh the entire time. And it is still farcical. And I still don't think that he really wants to be running Twitter. However, it was always clear that he knew what an effective propaganda vehicle it is, and he's using it to that end. He used it in the election, and he's still using it now. He turned it into a cesspool of Nazism, which culminated in him doing a Nazi salute at the inauguration. And then now Grok is doing this weird Hitler thing, and obviously that was not programmed out. They might have tried to cover it up somehow, or tried to institute some kind of counterbalance in the programming. But whatever it is about the programming that caused it to do that is not going anywhere, because Elon Musk over and over again has fostered that type of Nazi propaganda on purpose. So clearly he likes it. I don't think he wants to be, liable for it in the way that Grok was trying to make him liable for it. But, he does want that type of propaganda to be spread. I think that's ultimately his project. And so this third party thing, I do think he is going to at least try to follow through on it, unless he's given some reason to just kind of get back in line with the Republican Party. But it doesn't seem like he's going to do that. It seems like he has a different vision for how he wants to push right-wing politics and right-wing propaganda. And so I think that a lot of this Epstein talk is driven by him. I think that he's purposely driving it on his platform, and his use of Grok in this way is an indication of that. There's some polling coming out now that this is not making much of a dent on Trump's support in his base, which was predictable for a lot of people. Now, we'll see. I think it's probably too early to tell. This is in line with what most people thought, which is that the base isn't going anywhere. The base has stuck with Trump through worse. And we're seeing yet again that the sort of tone that captures the online discourse doesn't always reflect the messages that are reaching the broader public, whether you're talking about a right-wing audience or a liberal audience. And so as of right now, it doesn't seem like the commentators that have been making a lot of noise about Trump and Epstein have made much of a dent on the base. And essentially what I think is that with repetition and with time, that could change. So if the prominent voices that are hammering Trump about Epstein or even about war or whatever, if they don't stop, I do think eventually that will make a dent. However, I think the problem is that they are so audience captured. Somebody like Candace Owens, if the audience eventually wants her to move on from the Epstein stuff and is backing Trump, and the general tone of the discourse moves back to a place where, well, we got to support Trump because of all the crazy liberal leftist communism that he's up against, inevitably their news cycle is going to circle back to that narrative. And so people like Candace Owens are just going to go along with that because they have no interest in meaningfully opposing Trump. And I've said before that the only thing that could change that is Elon Musk floating some candidate that gives people an excuse to continue pushing a right-wing agenda, but change who the face of their right-wing agenda is. That's essentially what happened with RFK Jr., and it worked. He became a very prominent figure in conservative circles and with the conservative base. So we should keep an eye on Tucker Carlson, who has broken with Trump over the Epstein thing. We should keep an eye on Ron DeSantis, who is running this alligator Alcatraz place, and he's running defense for that right now, because it's getting a lot of criticism. It is being hit with lots of different lawsuits, the most recent one being the ACLU and Americans for Immigrant Justice, because immigration lawyers have not been able to see their client. And this has been happening consistently since the Trump administration took over, although certainly it didn't start there. However, the practice of denying immigrants right to talk to their attorneys, any type of due process, has been standard. They don't feel that immigrants have any rights when it comes to that at all. So all of these immigrants are being stripped of the rights that are in fact afforded to them by the Constitution, whether they're here legally or not. So while the Epstein stuff might roil the base a little bit, and like I said, I think with a little bit more time, we might see the effects of that in the actual base, the electorate base. However, if these commentators are as cowardly as I suspect they probably will be, they're going to get right back in line and this is going to go away. That's what always happens. The only difference this time was that people felt like they had a little bit more permission to go against Trump because of the general tone. And I think that that is in no small part due to Elon Musk purposely creating that type of environment. Not saying that he has, total control over the conservative environment, but the split between, the online discourse breaking from Trump quite a lot to the more measurable polling base of Trump, the type that tunes into like Fox News and like Newsmax, like cable, they have not really budged on this so far. And if anything, they support Trump more. So that to me is an indication that Elon Musk has more influence on the online conversation through like automated bot tools and stuff like Grok. But when it comes to the on the airs programming that really has helped Trump since he came down the golden escalator, we haven't seen much of a movement. And I think that as long as the immigration stuff continues to be cruel and draconian, a lot of Trump's base is going to continue to support him because that is the main thing that they elected him for. The really diehard Trump supporters, they wanted to see draconian, cruel treatment of immigrants, take out our national anger on immigrants and punish them for being here, for existing. And so as long as they continue to see that, I do think that that is where Trump's strongest base of support is, unfortunately. Like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you really want to support, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to support this channel. I'm also running a live stream now of my own music and content 24/7. So go check that out. If you're interested in the music, you can drop a comment in the chat. Tell me what you think of the music or ask me a question. I'm going to be kind of checking in on the chat there regularly, just to talk to you guys if you have any questions for me or want to suggest things. And then if you send super chats in there too, I can read those on the pod. Just some new things that I'm trying out. I also got my website up with a little bit of merch on there, just a hoodie and a hat for now. I'm selling those at retail price just to try to get some stuff out there. So if any of that is your cup of tea, check it out and become a member if you want access to exclusive music and different kinds of content before anybody else gets it.